Leader, third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, we learned last week that a controversial senior-level intervention was made by officials in the Finance Ministry in order to maximise casino revenue. Incredibly, Honourable Speaker, the intervention to increase betting limits to $100,000 per hand, despite repeated warnings from the regulator, was deemed to be, and I quote, in the public interest by the former Minister of Finance. Let me reiterate, Honourable Speaker, allowing $100,000 betting limits to be played at casinos, despite clear warning signs from the regulator, was deemed to be, quote, in the public interest. I don't know how many of you have played blackjack or poker with $100,000 stakes. I'd suggest not an awful lot. Shocking it is, Honourable Speaker. My question is to the Attorney General. Each week, more and more information is brought to light. An ever-growing list of questions are emerging. Pressure for an independent public inquiry continues to grow. The Federal Minister for Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction has indicated he is open to a request from the province for supporting an inquiry. He now has 2 special reports in front of him. Does he think he has enough evidence to call for a public inquiry?
Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Yes, this is an important day. The Minister of Finance has received a report from her team, from Maureen Maloney. I've received Dr. German's report, which, as the member knows, looks at issues around luxury cars, issues around horse racing, and issues around real estate. Dr. German's report alone is more than 300 pages. We've just received it. We'll be going through it to do a couple of things, make sure that the public release doesn't compromise any law enforcement investigations and doesn't unfairly impugn the reputation of any individuals, and then we'll be releasing it to the public. And the reason for that is exactly the reason that the member has identified, that people deserve to know what's been going on in British Columbia, what happened under the previous government, and why we need to take the measures that we're taking to get things under control. They made a number of serious errors of judgment. We don't know whether it was willful blindness or negligence.
Members,
but the member who's shouting at me is one of the key members, obviously, Honourable Speaker. And I understand why he's defensive about it, but the truth will out.
Leader, third party on a supplemental.
I got ahead of myself there, Honourable Speaker. Thank you again, and thank you to the Attorney General for his answer. Well, last week, Honourable Speaker, the Attorney General said this: the larger issue that I understand British Columbians are concerned about is really political accountability and to identify if there is rot in the system, to have that rot weeded out through a public inquiry system. He's absolutely correct, Honourable Speaker. We need political accountability, which is why the BC Green Caucus has been calling for an independent inquiry for over a month now. It's why thousands upon thousands of people have signed petitions calling for one, and why several organizations, municipalities and unions have also called for one. Last week, the Attorney General also said that, and I quote, the Premier has been clear about keeping the option open to a public inquiry. My question is to the Attorney General: when will we know if government is serious about launching a public inquiry?
Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The member will know that our emphasis has been on identifying what's been happening and stopping that activity from continuing. That's been the big priority. The member raises the issue of accountability, especially political accountability. I do think that's a very important issue, not just for the member, not just for me, and not just for the government, but certainly for all British Columbians. And we'll be looking at the reports we've received, and the Premier and government will be making a decision about a public inquiry if necessary. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.